I never really thought about how hard it was to record a video and a podcast at the same time, but this is proving to be kind of difficult. Today you get a little behind the scenes of my podcast episode, my new podcast episode. If you're not following along, you can find me at Something Simple on Spotify. I just recently started a podcast literally last week. This is my second ever episode, but I wanted to also record it because I just like this topic and I wanted to have it on my YouTube as well. I'm not having a very good hair day or anything day, so it's okay. Let's just get this started. Don't laugh at my cheap microphone. It does the job, okay? Here we go. Hi guys, and welcome back to the Something Simple podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I'm apologizing in advance for sounding like a back to school commercial, but with the new year approaching and some of you already in it, bless your souls, I wanted to take a minute to talk about this subject because I've learned quite a bit in my past 3 years teaching, and majority of it I was not taught in college. So whether you're a new teacher, one re-entering the classroom after a while, or just having that typical back to school anxiety like I am, I hope this episode helps you. Number 1, your room does not have to be Pinterest worthy. There is a lot of pressure, I feel like, especially as a new teacher, surrounded by TikTok teachers and Instagram teachers and everything, to make your classroom Pinterest worthy. And I have to say, yes, it's exciting to decorate, and if you have time, then I would definitely do it, but it's not the most important thing, and to be quite honest with you, kids truly barely notice. That being said, your classroom should be presentable and clean, accessible, functional. So my first year, I had a blank wall, an upside down bulletin board border, a blank bulletin board, a non-functional reading area. So kids use this more as like a war zone. There were pillows in constant battle, the pencil stabbings, fluff everywhere. It was a whole battle scene. Zippers were ripped, anything you could imagine. It was horrible, and I only wanted that because it was a cute thing and I saw it all over TikTok and Instagram, and it just wasn't functional, at least not for me. And the things that I found that are functional are things like fun posters. So I have figurative language posters, and those are things that kids can refer to as they're writing or working on projects. I have a reading graffiti. It's like a little wipe off chalkboard paper thing, and kids can write quotes from books on there or book recommendations. I hang up students' work. I have little colorful buckets to hold pencils and a little student center. Those are usually gone by the end of the day, but it's okay. A sign on the door to let students know which room you're in. I also have a little quote calendar on Amazon, so I'll put that on my desk, and each day I can rip off that day, and the next day it shows me a quote, and the kids actually really like that. Obviously, they should know what day it is because it's written everywhere in the classroom, but also they like coming in and reading those little inspirational quotes. So all of these things are functional, and they actually make the classroom cute. You can buy cute little buckets like I have for the pencils, so like I said before, but essentially it's really not about the decor that you have, it's about you and whether or not you are creating that important environment for your students. Because you can have the cutest room in the school, but if you're not creating genuine relationships and being an inviting and welcoming teacher, then it really doesn't matter. Kids are not going to say, oh, she's the worst teacher I've ever had, but I love that class because she has pillows. Nobody cares about pillows. And my very first year, and I'm not even saying, I literally wanted my classroom to be Pinterest worthy. I was all about the theme my first year, and honestly my second year too. And it's nice to have the little pops of color and whatever you want, but it doesn't have to be your whole thing. My first year, I really truly realized this when one of my students came up to me at the end of the year and she said, even if we didn't like to read or we didn't like to write, we never wanted to leave this classroom. And that to me was so important because it showed me that students were loving my classroom because they liked me and they liked the environment that I was creating, not the decor. And I know that it wasn't the decor because my first year, my room was a blank slate. It was not cute in any way possible. So even when my room was more decorated and I had the same kind of responses from students, if I did receive praise from them, it was never about how cute my classroom was. It was about my lessons or my personality, not my decor. I could talk about decor a lot because as new teachers, there's such pressure to make your classroom look a certain way and have a certain aesthetic. And honestly, if you can get to it, then do it. Make your classroom how you want it to look, but it's definitely not the most important thing. Number 2, routine and structure. The day I started setting routines was the day my classroom management became 10 times easier for me. And it does not have to be a boring routine and a boring structure either. So what I like to do, they're called agenda slides. You can find them on the Townie teacher's link tree on her Google Drive. I'll link that below. But there's a section where she has attendance questions. So she'll ask her students attendance questions just as like a quick little warm up. What I did with that is I replaced it with a do now, just because my kids as 7th graders need to know what they need to do immediately when they get into the room. I'll set up a do now for them, and that will be something like take out your book and silently read, take out your notebook and take out your pencil. Some days, and this is where I started understanding this routine and structure and how it didn't have to be something super serious. I started meme Mondays, so students know as soon as they come in, there is a meme posted on Google Classroom. They can go ahead and caption it, and then the next day we vote and we choose a winner with whoever has the funniest caption. Book Trailer Tuesday, students know, they come in, they sit down, we're about to watch a book recommendation trailer. What is it Wednesday? These are usually zoomed in pictures and students can guess what it is. Thursday thoughts, it'll be something like finish the drawings. Students will, again, read the do now, get one of the pieces of papers that has half a drawing on it, and finish that within 5 minutes as everybody's settling down. This helps not only the students understand what to expect each day, but it also helps me kind of get everybody settled, talk to students if I need to catch them up on something, take attendance, talk to another teacher. It just is a nice way to switch things up a little bit, but also have that fun routine in there and set students up for what's to come for that day. The other thing is that your lessons don't have to be something insane. And this kind of goes along with the pressure to create a Pinterest-worthy classroom. Your lessons do not have to be the most fun lessons that you've ever created every single day. I think one thing that I did learn in grad school was I do not have to reinvent the wheel, but I also do not have to write a 5,000-page lesson plan to get my point across. I remember even when I was student teaching, I would practice in my mirror the night before, kind of like a script, how I wanted everything to be structured, and it was just so robotic. And I think you kind of have to do that your first few times in front of the classroom, but after a while, you kind of just, I understand the teachers now who were saying, I only put my lessons on a sticky note, bullet points. This is what I need to do today, and that's it. And honestly, for me, on those agenda slides, we will also have the agenda for the day, and I know by that that's what I want to get to for the day, and that helps me. But really, the only thing, not the only thing, but the way that you can switch your lessons up a little bit, it doesn't have to be crazy, right? It kind of just has to be engaging, and you can engage students in your lessons by doing the smallest things. partner work, giving them choices when you can, having half an activity on paper, half an activity on the computer. It does not have to be crazy. If they're getting up and they're talking and they're working, then that will make them happy. If you say, okay, today you can choose your partners, that is good enough. You do not have to do anything crazy. As a side note, though, I would say ask your students what previous teachers have done that they really enjoyed. A lot of them will say, like, play games, but we can't always do that, unfortunately. But you will have some students who say, oh, I really liked how they let us choose this prompt and didn't tell us solely what to write, right? And whenever you can, incorporate that choice, incorporate different ways of presenting what they've learned. Kind of went on a tangent with lessons, but now we're kind of back to routine and structure. So setting clear boundaries, this is important, especially because the thing that I've learned about 7th graders specifically, so if you're in that middle of the middle with me, you understand this. In 6th grade, I have sub 6th grade. They're adorable. Cute at first. They come into you in fall. They're adorable, right? Because they still have their sweet little 6th grade innocence. But we all know that they change. So you do not have to be mean, but you have to be clear and consistent. This is something that's so hard for me that I'm still working on, because I want to be liked. I'm going to be super honest with you. I don't know who doesn't want to be liked, but I want my students to like me. I want to have a good relationship with them. The difference that I realized I needed to understand is that students can like me, but they also need to respect me. So in order to do that, you have to be fair and consistent and a little strict in the beginning. And what I mean by that, because I don't mean being mean, what I mean by being strict is following through. So if you say, here are my expectations, and the students are not following that, you need to follow through with whatever punishment you said in the beginning of the year, or whatever consequence. Punishment is kind of harsh. So if they're not doing what you said, for example, and you said, when you do not do these things, if you do not do your working class, you will have to finish it at lunch, right? No matter how cute that little kid is on the first day, if they do not finish their work in class and they fully, I'm talking like, not that they didn't understand what they have to do, I'm talking like being resistant and not doing their work at all, then you have to say, okay, you're gonna finish it at lunch. And the kids will respect you more for that. It's not going to feel good right off the bat, but they will understand that you're not being unfair. You gave them the rules. They know clearly that what was expected of them, and they know what will happen if they don't follow what they're told. So there was one day I switched a student's seat once and they weren't happy, but that was the consequence to their actions. I said, you need to concentrate. You cannot talk when I'm talking. You're sitting next to a friend as a privilege. If this happens again, your seat is going to be moved. The seat was moved. I had a really great relationship with this student and they were not happy with me. They did not talk to me for about a whole day, maybe 2 days. I went on with my lesson. I taught every student the same. I didn't take their behavior personally, and the next day it was fine. Kids understand when they are in the wrong, but you have to set those boundaries. If you say something, you have to stick with it for those first few months, and I'm honestly saying all this to remind myself, especially. That being said, I'm going to get into behavior and how that's more of a communication than something personal. But before I move on to that, I just want to be clear and say, don't be afraid also to let go of routines every once in a while if it doesn't work. There has been times where I wanted to talk to the students about something first, so I kind of just settled them down and then we went on. But if it was a day where we had a meme Monday, they would already be settled and they'd be looking for the meme. So I would have their attention because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you can pick right back up after that. This is probably one of my favorite topics just because as somebody who wants to be liked and as somebody who is a true people pleaser, behavior is commutative. It's not personal. So any behavior is a form of communication, even when it's the hardest thing to understand. With some students, I just wonder why. Why are you doing what? Why are you being this way? Why? And sometimes I've even said, like, I am taking this personally because I don't know what to do with you anymore. I'm like, I think I've talked to you. I know all this stuff about you, but you're still not doing what I want you to do. But it's always a communication, no matter what. Sometimes you just have to think a little bit harder about it. It's always a conversation to be had. Sometimes students are bored, not engaged, they're overwhelmed, or they're not understanding the material. Other times it's because they simply have something else going on. And I think we often forget that whether the student is 8 or 18, they are still learning the right ways to communicate, and their form of communication most likely stems from home. So I hate to say it, but learning what a verb is often not the most pressing thing on the agenda for students. And that goes back to saying whether they're 8 or 18, they are still kids. They're still learning. I bet we can all think back, if you're older than 18, to when we were 18. I'm 28. 21 sounds young now. I think about how I behaved when I was 21. It wasn't anything bad, but it was definitely more immature than I am now. And I think we can understand that when we were 18, a lot of the things we did were because we did not know how to properly communicate what we were feeling. And that being said, my mentor, she told me the first thing she does when she meets a student out in the hall is asks if they're okay. That right away shows the student you care about them. You care about them getting their work done, yes, but you also truly just care about them as a person. They have so many other things going on in that time that is more important than whatever is happening in class, and it's okay to put that on the back burner for a minute and really just focus on connecting with that student. The best thing, the most important thing, do not fight fire with fire. And this is hard because it's hard not to take their behaviors personally, and when you do, it's kind of like, it's hard not to get mad, and it's hard not to kind of yell because you're frustrated. But I'm going to try this year to kind of just count to 5 and take a step back, be calm, be present, and just be consistent. I had a student who had some trouble regulating his emotions this past year. He was stressing out over not being able to see the board when I had it up for students, and it kind of came out of nowhere. And I was a little taken aback at first, but I kept very calm. He was getting very frustrated. And I said, okay, that's no problem. Do you want me to zoom in for you? Let's, whatever, move your seat, whatever you want to do. I just kept calm, and then he was fine. So in that moment, those students are already so worked up. The last thing they need is the teacher also being worked up and just clashing with them. There was another time another student was yelling and raced out of the room, and a teacher who didn't know him yelled at him and asked what was going on. And I was like, you can't do that. But it's hard because that teacher also didn't know him. I knew that student. And so I think it's important that whether you know the student or not, to always keep this calm demeanor about you when something is out of the ordinary. Speaking of having a calm demeanor and how kids are just kids, there was another time where I literally sat on the floor with a student out in the hallway just to talk about what was going on. So they're just kids. The next day, I left a sticker and a note on his desk that just said something like, "You matter," or "I'm glad you're here." And he came up to me later in the day wearing the sticker on his jacket, and another teacher that he's really close with told me that he went downstairs to show her earlier that day and had just a huge smile on his face. And the next day, he did more work than usual. So that brings me to my next point: build relationships and rapport, and the rest will follow. Now, I did learn a little bit about building a rapport with students, but I think there's a lot of things that I learned about more with this when I was in the classroom. So for example, this past year, this is when I truly realized it's okay to kind of let go of routine a little bit, whether you're teaching elementary school, middle school, high school, honestly, even a college class. It's okay if sometimes you don't finish a lesson. You should finish most of them. But I could just tell it was the last period of the day, my biggest class, my students were just staring at me, blank. I mean, if you're a teacher, you know that look. It was just a blank stare after I asked a question. And it was not a hard question. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it was a question that could not possibly have a wrong answer. And I just said, okay, you know what? We have like 5 minutes left of class. I said, screw it. Are you guys tired? And it was a resounding like, yes. And it had nothing to do with my class or me or that lesson, which again goes back to do not take their behaviors personally, because most of the time it's not about you. They had tests, they had games they were worried about, they had family they were worried about. 7th grade, or any subject, any grade, is not the most important thing for a student. Shocker, I know. So I said, okay, I brought out my Amazon microphone, said, here's what we're gonna do. Last 5 minutes, we're just gonna complain. Everybody can pass this microphone around and you just complain, whatever you want to complain about. I went first. I said I was tired. I don't know, I'm always tired. And even the students that I thought would just pass did not. They shared what they wanted to share. And I'm not sure what, we all clapped after each one. I realize now that we shouldn't be clapping when people are complaining, but it's okay. And this was the environment that students liked. And I had quite a few students come up to me after this and say that they really needed that, or that was a good thing to do. So students like those things. And that kind of leads into how they can see a little bit when you're not being your genuine self. So if you're a new teacher and you're comparing yourself to all of these other teachers, one thing to remember is that you need to just be you. The kids can see through it. They can see when you truly don't care about them. They can see when you're making things up or putting on a front or whatever it is, but they can see it. Don't be afraid to mess up. Kids actually like that. It shows them that their teacher isn't a robot. I often use my own writing pieces for students to edit and revise, and I have to thank my team a lot for that, and my my subject team also. I don't know why I'm blanking on so many words, but we often advise using our own writing for students to edit and revise, just to show like, hey, yes, I am the teacher, but no matter your level of learning, there's always places to improve. Definitely use your own work to show students new skills or to help them feel like they're kind of in charge, and there's something that they find gratifying about editing and revising their teacher's work. So, I mean, when your teacher used to make a mistake on the board, how many kids called that mistake out so fast? Definitely don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't act like you know everything either. People can read that. Anybody can read that, right? Nobody wants a know-it-all either. And I often say that I'm not usually the smartest person in the room. I think smart has a lot of definitions. It's definitely not just a flat definition. So I'm gonna probably talk about that in another podcast. Anyway, moving on. Don't force the relationship either. So again, When students feel like you're not being genuine, they will be super resistant. And honestly, it's kind of confusing because I feel like at the same time, when they do feel like they're forming a small connection with you, they also become resistant if that's their usual personality with teachers in school. But what I like to do with those students is kind of just like sprinkle in like small things here and there, and then I'll just leave them alone. And then after a while, they just come to you. So, for example, there was a student who I was honestly trying to form a relationship with throughout the year. Every day I would try to do something small, talk to him for like a minute, just ask how he's doing, just the basic questions. And there was one day, a month before school was ending, he had his head on his desk. I asked him what was wrong, and I didn't get an answer. I said, okay, I'm here if you need me. And then I walked away. He calls me back, and he started telling me how his grandma was not doing well and how she just passed away the other day. And I listened to him, I empathized with him, and then I walked away because I was really grateful that he opened up to me in that moment, and I didn't want to push it more unless he wanted to talk more about it. So when he was quiet, I kind of said, well, I'm here for you if you need anything, let me know. And I walked away, started doing some other things. The student started independent work, and he says, wait, I have more to say. So he calls me back over and starts telling me even more. So it's just those small things, and that's, again, being consistent and persistent with those types of students, because they really do care. As much as they put up a wall, as long as you're being genuine about creating a relationship with them, they are going to eventually give you a little bit back. So just keep trying. And don't be afraid to let go of academics. Talk to them about other things and things that interest them, and try to kind of rope that in. Give those students choice. Make them in charge of something, whether that's like passing out papers or writing on the board or whatever. Definitely give them something to do, because that will make them feel important and make them feel like you're paying attention to them. Lastly, and I feel like this is a good note to kind of leave off on, because it's so true, with all of the pressure that teachers have to be this perfect teacher, and especially for your students, and to be the favorite teacher and whatever, just know that, and this is not, I'm truly exaggerating, because you will not have a class of 20 students who do not like you, but there is always at least one student who looks forward to your class. You are the best part of that student's day. And I think that's what really keeps me going, because I think back to all the grades that I've been in. Elementary school, I didn't really have a choice, but in middle school and high school, and even in college, I thought about how there was always that one teacher or that one class that I loved going to. And it was the class that I looked forward to the most. And I think about how it just means a lot when they come up to you and say, at the end of the year, your class was the class I looked forward to the most during the day, or one of the classes I looked forward to the most. And the reason why this is important to me is because, again, it wasn't because my classroom was Pinterest worthy. It wasn't because I planned the craziest lessons. It wasn't because I was super stern one day to keep the class in line. It was because I created an environment and a safe space for this student to come to me. They liked the atmosphere. They enjoyed the atmosphere of the classroom. They enjoyed being in that room. Regardless of all the little small things that happened, it just comes down to who you are for that student. And that student needs you. So when you have those super tough days, just know that there's one student that needs your classroom. It needs you. They will remember you for who you are and what you've done for them. And most importantly, how you made them feel. Whether it's your 50th year or your first year, these are just small reminders that it's okay. A lot of it's okay, and it will be okay always, no matter what. Okay guys, that was my little behind the scenes podcast. My throat hurts, as always. I will see you later. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. Go check out my podcast under Something Simple Podcast on Spotify. I also have a Twitter now. It is _somethingpod, so you can follow me there. If you like this video, you can subscribe and click the bell for notifications and to hang out more with me. Okay, bye.